the title of this talk is Being in Perfection.
Thank you, and thanks so much for being here. I'm really happy to be here and always energized and so much at home in this place. So I'm really grateful to be here and join with everybody. I don't care how many people show up, it feels so perfect to come here and join and speak and share every time. So important to remember, you don't have to believe, agree, or accept anything I'm sharing. I'm just offering what I make very clear to the students that I teach and mentor is that free will is paramount. If we're going to claim our power, we need to release ourselves from this prison that other people need to accept, believe, or endorse what we feel, or see our side in any way, or seek validation for us in any way. We need to release that and really honor each other's free will if we're going to claim our God-given power, okay? Because needing other people to agree and go along with us is an acknowledgement is that I'm not good enough, I'm not whole enough, I'm not perfect enough, I'm not strong enough, because I need acknowledgement from the outside. So that's really number one. And I just took a workshop, just got off a little while ago, a Dr. Sue Morter workshop over the weekend. Julie took it recently as well too. So I'm gonna jump right into a lot of things that I learned that has clarified my spiritual path in a beautiful, practical, moment-to-moment way. And I'm gonna be mindful of the time, so I honor everybody's um, commitment that they have here tonight. So Dr. Sue Morter, in her Heal Your Life uh, workshop that she has. So one of the things that I have shared with the students is meditation. So there's ways that we can anchor ourselves during the day. 4 ways that you can do these anchoring points, Dr. Sue calls them, and you can do them at any point during the day. The first might seem kind of goofy, but they work. The first is our eyes, just keeping our eyes up. Okay, helps us ground in a way. The next is constricting our throat or putting our tongue back like we drank something too hot and burned our tongue, and that constricts us back. That alone anchors us. The third thing is our shoulder blades back and dropping back. That anchors us in our core muscles or our bathroom muscles, like you have to stop peeing, you squeeze that a little bit. All those things together anchor us. So if you'd like, if you choose, please join me in a brief meditation practice just to ingrain this a little bit. So if you'd like to, just put your eyelids up a little bit and your tongue back and your elbows back and down and your core muscles just a little bit tight, and just follow me. So just give yourself permission to imagine this flow of energy going around you. Just play around with it. You don't have to believe it. Just imagine it for just a moment, okay? So just imagine this flow of energy that we're breathing this up from the ground into our heart space, and then we're breathing it out all around us in this beautiful flow. So it's circulating around and we're breathing it up through our heart space, and we're extending it out all around us. And we're breathing it up from the ground into our heart space, and then we're just extending it out all around us, unlimited in every direction. We're breathing it straight up from the ground through our belly into our heart space, up and extending it out all around. And as we do that, we become that energy and that flow all around us. We become this unlimited force that is flowing all around us anyway, that we can't see, but we can feel. So we actually become that when we get into this practice, because we are that. Okay, and I invite you to keep your anchor points, your eyes, tongue back, shoulder blades back, and your core muscle tight as you breathe in and extending out, and breathe in and extending out, and breathe in from the ground and extending out. And that light and that energy and that flow, that is who we are. And come back and open your eyes. So that's just the way that we can anchor ourselves. I actually teach that to the students in my mentoring group. They were giggling and laughing at first, but they actually got a pretty good hang of it after being there for 9 months. The majority of that group actually are dropping into meditation longer and longer. And the norm in the group now is to follow along in those meditations. I don't force it, always honor their free will. But the majority of the group actually, you can start to see their attention light up that, wow, there's a part of themselves that they didn't even know was there and that they can call on and access and energize and depend on, that does not depend on the craziness around them. And I tell them after we do these exercises that proves to me that you don't have ADHD. That as an educator of almost 30 years, I can confidently say that these diagnoses of attention deficit and ADHD are BS. They are complete BS. Just another reason for powers out there to prescribe a bunch of medication and get people hooked on stuff and to numb them. ADHD is BS completely. What it is that we as people have an intention deficit. When we get out of bed, we don't have any structure, we don't have any intention, and we don't allow ourselves practice at focusing our attention. We don't allow ourselves structure and practice at training our minds to go where we want it to go. So what I tell the students is that no, all we need is practice. We don't need to keep telling ourselves a story. We just need to practice training our attention back to our natural state, which is this flow, which then enlivens our God-given abilities, okay? And again, always honoring others' free will to choose and believe as they wish, but I'm speaking from experience, not head knowledge, okay? And speaking of grounding ourselves, what the Dr. Sue does is this idea of grounding our energy and our experiences in our bodies. Because if you look at our false beliefs, all of the false belief we've developed around being sinful, being bad, being guilty, those things have been ingrained in our physical self to the point that we believe it all the way to the end of days. If we watch a horror movie, we watch maybe some type of emotional movie, that it stimulates us in a way to where we actually believe for a moment that we're experiencing what's going on the screen. And so it's because those beliefs of fear and other emotions have been grounded into our bodies to the point to where they seem so real. We have a dream or a nightmare, we react, our bodies sweat and have other reactions that feels like we're in that movie, because those beliefs have been grounded into our bodies. So we can use that same mechanism of grounding to replace that belief with this natural flow, which is the higher, truer spirit self, you would say. We can actually replace it, not deny our human earthly experience, but use it, use the triggers, use the upsets to reinstall this natural flow of divine creative force, the God energy, if you want to call it, in its place. And that's what the gist of the workshop was. Okay? Speaking of being in perfection, as opposed to all of the false beliefs that we got so conditioned with about our badness, our guilt, our being unworthy, our not being good enough, and all of the systems that we've had in our experience, in our human experience, that have layered on those false beliefs about ourselves to the point that we believe them without question. If you can just think about this idea of a creator and perfect divine creation, perfection in creation, in the universe, in God, does not make mistakes. There's a reason that if we look out at nature, that it operates in such a flow that doesn't make any sense to humans a lot of times. The way nature interacts and the planets and the stars have this alignment, it doesn't oftentimes make sense to us because we can't grasp how these things flow together so perfectly. Well, there's a reason for that perfection in its system and how things fit and flow together so seamlessly until we decide to interrupt in them. The universe, creation, does not make mistakes. And it's really important to get that how we were made was not a mistake either. We have this worldly identity, which we bought into, that has in many ways shown us the opposite of perfection because of our behaviors and our judgments. But there's a piece of this human identity, there's a connection to this human design that is absolutely perfect. If you think back to trauma that all of us have had, really bad, tragic experiences, and if you think about the direction and the incentive and the sort of the impetus that these experiences move us in our lives to then come to a place of discovery and knowing ourselves as we really are, not as the story says. Creation and divinity does not make mistakes. But if we've allowed the stories of the world, including the dramas and the sorrows and the tragedy, if we've allowed those to become so steeped in our identity, then we become that which is in this little box of a story, which doesn't move beyond that story. And if we can allow this divine field to start to become more and more a regular part of our existence, then we start to get to know in glimpses a piece of our higher identity that has no limitation based on the story, no matter how much we have wanted to tell ourselves that we're small and limited by the experiences that might have been not so pleasant and negative and dark and heavy and limiting in our past. It's all a matter of giving ourselves permission to imagine, just imagine, because we don't often do that. Our imaginations run, but our imaginations oftentimes use us as opposed to us using the imagination. If we just give ourselves permission to imagine that there's this divine, perfect part of ourselves, which we can then practice and reconnect with every moment of the day, using those moments and those interactions that don't seem so perfect. And again, this has nothing to do with denial and shoving it down as being spiritual and pretending to be positive, nothing to do with that. It's taking all the stuff that does not feel comfortable and actually embracing it, doing the opposite of what we were taught, and to embrace it and to enthusiastically embrace it and have a mechanism in ourself, in our field, to be able to then ground a new higher energy and force into us in its place. What if we were able to wake up every day and as opposed to dreading going through discomfort, what if we were able to enthusiastically embrace the discomfort that came our way? Didn't necessarily in that moment make it go away, but we have a system in place to be able to ground ourselves, to be able to call on our higher divine force, and to be able to walk through unpleasant, dark interactions, negative, abrasive, conflict-filled interaction, to walk through them from a place of being protected and being expansive and being whole, as opposed to feeling small and defensive and like we have to prove ourselves and protect ourselves and avoid certain things and people. What if we could wake up knowing with intention that I'm going to enthusiastically embrace the discomfort today, and I know how to walk through it? And this part is important, that our ability to tune into our energy field, which I just briefly introduced in that beginning meditation, our ability to tune into that energy field and to ground ourselves in that does not depend on anything outside of us, does not depend on circumstances being right, does not depend on certain people or environment or weather or anything. It just depends on our willingness to be able to use the experience, whatever it is, and to be able to ground ourselves in it while calling on this higher energy and creative force that's always there for us. All we have to do is be willing to open to it. It doesn't necessarily make the negative feelings magically go away, but it does give us a muscle and a pathway. Dr. Seuss says to carving pathways to be able to ground these experiences in truth as opposed to human reactivity and fear and guilt and manipulation, but grounding them in this energy of truth, that energy, that pathway, that opening in our energy, in our divinity is always there. But we need to choose to ground ourselves, and as opposed to grounding ourselves, as opposed to not grounding ourselves and being in reactivity, as if we're playing dodge, with stimulus in this movie that's coming at us. Dr. Seuss says if we can get our mind, body, and breath or spirit to unify, then we can restore and access our natural creative conditions. So we hear about mind, body, and spirit. Well, she says that breath is another word for spirit. To get our mind, body, and our breath to unify actually restores our natural condition. We do this over and over again, and we actually restore this divinity in ourselves. And we finally get to see that the stuff that we hear about divine love and the stuff that we see and study about what true love is, the highest form of love, we start to see that this place, this pathway, this opening that we can lock into is enough. That this feeling of divine love, of divine perfection, of divine sensibility and groundingness and identity, that's enough. That there's no need to fix anything or fix anybody when we can walk through life from that place of being grounded in higher truth. So one thing that really stuck with me throughout this practice, that clarified a lot for me as far as everything I've studied before with the Course in Miracles and how that applies to our day-to-day walk. Because Jesus in the Course in Miracles says the body is a communication device. And that's very much what Dr. Seuss's work is teaching, that our bodies are constantly communicating with us, but we often ignore it and try to push through the day and push through the unpleasantness and the discomfort the way we know how, in survival mode. And when we're having discomfort in any way, physical discomfort, when we're having, more pointedly, when we're having fear and guilt and shame and resistance come up in any way, that if we can learn to just ask, where is this coming from? Then our bodies / spirit is going to point out exactly where in our physical makeup this is coming from. If we ask consistently on whatever level, we'll get pointed in whatever direction this blockage might be manifesting in. Whether it's some type of physical condition, somewhere in our body reflects some type of block and resistance. But we need to be conscious about asking, where is this upset or this resistance or this discomfort coming from? And we will be shown. We will be shown if we consciously and willingly ask. And once we get shown where this resistance is concentrated at, we can learn to put our attention on it. We can learn to breathe into it. We hear about loving our illness or loving our anger or whatever resistance is. To be more clear about what a functional form of love is, because we have a lot of resistance to that word love and maybe ideas that might be different about love. But imagine when our bodies are speaking to us that we can put our full attention on that spot. We can put our full appreciation on that spot. We can put our honoring on that spot. We can bless that spot over and over again. We can join, we can embrace, we can fully appreciate the communication from spirit coming through and whatever upset or block or condition might be reflecting itself at that time. We can do that, and we can do that all day long. And again, I just gave you some really brief snippets of the information that she shared, but the important thing is that we remember that there's a constant flow of God energy around us, and that's us. But we have to be conscious about going through the day and tuning into that, not denying, but using our day-to-day and our moment-to-moment interactions. And I tell the students, it's the beautiful thing about these practices is that we can do them anywhere. You're in class, you're walking, you're talking. I'm consciously keeping that and anchoring myself and remembering this flow in my breath. I'm consciously doing that now because I want my words and my actions to reflect higher divinity and inspiration and guidance and not my own personal ideas. So we don't need to ask permission. We don't need to wait on conditions to be right. We don't have to be at the mercy of people and unpleasant things around us. We can always take control of which space we want to interact with and which identity we want to grow and expand. And when we do that over and over and over, it's undescribable, the release that happens. I was sharing in the online workshop, I've learned not to say too much when these experiences start happening because it kind of messes it up. I like to share in general terms about how expansive and how freeing some of these experiences are, but I don't go too far because it'll kind of mess up the communication because you have to experience it for yourself. We have to just be willing and be led to these things. They can't be forced. But once you start getting a taste of this power that you have available, that you can keep going back to and back to and back to, and you can keep focusing on and putting your attention on over and over, it just grows and grows and grows. And there are no words to describe how big and expansive and how unlimited our power and our true identity is, but we have to work it for it to work for us. So I'll leave you with that. And the last thing I want to share is Jesus's 4 points of power to be able to moment remember some of the higher principles in the simplest of ways. Number one, be willing and brave enough to see all and everything through the eyes of the heart, seeing all as one with God and yourself. That is the ultimate expression of humility, vulnerability, and strength. Two, avoid taking sides. Very much in vogue and in style now. Avoid taking sides for purposes of attack of the enemy. Never hate, appreciate for what those people are showing us about the hidden layers of ourselves. Three, practice imagining a sense of joy and clarity in our hearts and extending that out, very much in line with what we shared. Extending out that joy and that clarity from our heart everywhere, indiscriminately. Unlimitedness, extending out from that divine place in our hearts that we all have and we all share and we all join and live in. And finally, practice in our hearts a voice of unconditional kindness, gentleness, and appreciation no matter what comes up. This is the only voice of truth that we need to listen to. So I appreciate everybody deeply. Acknowledge yourself for being here. Thank you so much. And I invite everybody to don't be fooled by the story of smallness, to not be fooled by the story that we should justify us being small, so small that we have to fight each other and to put each other down, so small that we have to identify with some false self that justifies hating and putting each other down and separating each other. It's BS. It's not true. We're better than that. We're more powerful than that. We're bigger than that. We're more universal than that, and we're more godly than that. So I invite everybody to know who you are. Don't buy into the junk that's getting us to fall off onto the dark side of influences that have no interest in us coming together and knowing our God-given truth. I appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.